Well, my wife's Toyota Sienna has developed a shudder. Alright, so as I said, it's developed a shudder, and it appears to be doing it when the torque converter is locking up. At least that's what I'm thinking. And so I'm hoping what we're dealing with is some transmission fluid that is at the end of its life. So we're going to service the transmission in hopes that that takes care of the issue. We are not going to do a flush. We will do a drop the pan, put a filter in it, top the fluid back off, and if we see an improvement, but maybe there's still a little bit of a shudder, then we will drain the pan and fill it again to do another partial fluid change. But if we drop the pan, if it works the first time, we'll leave it alone. You know, the goal is to not disturb it too much. But I'm hoping that will fix our issue and we don't have a torque converter that's going out. I feel like it's in the transmission. I've kind of looked at the motor mounts. I don't see any that are broke, you know, just trying to make sure, you know, it's not just shuddering because, you know, motor mounts broke or something. I don't think it's a misfire, you know, like one of those little fish bite misfires. It seems to do it when the torque converter locks, and it does a little shudder and then it's fine. But you feel it a couple times, and it's typically just a little bit after a shift. The shifts are fine, and then just a little bit after the shift, a few seconds, you know, when you would expect the torque converter to lock, you feel a shudder and then it's done, it's gone. So I think that's going to be torque converter, and I'm hoping, like I said, it's fluid related. I don't want to have to be putting a transmission in this thing. So let's get underneath, and this thing does not have a dipstick, so we'll have to get down to it. But there's basically a bolt you pull on the side of the transmission to fill it, and then there's a little tube in the pan, kind of a straw or something that sticks up a certain height, and you know, you fill it till it runs out that hole. And I'll show you when we get underneath. So before we pull the pan, one thing we want to do is we want to make sure we can actually get the plug out, the fill plug. Like I said, this thing does not have a dipstick. So I've pulled the driver's side wheel off. Of course, I've got it jacked up and on stands. Driver's side wheel off, and we've got a splash shield here, and we'll just pull. Well, that clip was no good. We'll replace that guy. Typically you push on those and they'll pop out and you pull them out, but that one is brittle. 10 millimeter. And I think, if I recall correctly, this is a 24. Let's check. And the reason we're doing this is if we can't, for some reason that fill plug will not come out, we do not want to drain the transmission, right? So we will start by making sure we can get the plug out. And it is 24. And it broke loose, so we are just gonna just hand tighten that back on. So now we need to go up underneath the car. All right, and we are underneath, and I did some reading on this, and it looks like the recommended way is to jack the transmission up, undo the motor mount and jack it up, because you've got one bolt here that's really hard to get to and another one back here. But I think I've got a solution for that. At least we're going to try it. And that is these 1/4 inch wobbly sockets. So these are awesome. We'll try to find a link to some of these. Probably will not find Craftsman ones, but we'll find a link to some, and we're gonna see if we think that will work. I mean, I think that will work. And this one, whoop. What do you think? Nope. Well, we're gonna try it. It is barely on there. If we can break it loose, I bet we can get it off with our hands. We're for sure gonna try it. And the other ones, for sure we can get to. Yep. I am 100% gonna try it. So we're gonna try getting that off before we actually drain our fluid. So let me put y'all, I'm gonna set up some time lapse so y'all can watch me try to get this bolt out. We'll start with this one and then I'll move y'all and we'll try to get this other one. All right, we're gonna admit defeat and jack up the transmission. If you saw in the time lapse, I could not get a good enough bite with the 10mm wiggle joint, and then I also tried a swivel head gear wrench, and I could not get enough. The lip of the pan stuck up high enough that I couldn't get a good bite with the head of the gear wrench is too big to slip over the bolt. It hits the lip of the pan. So right here is our transmission mount. We're gonna undo this bolt. It is a 19mm. So we're gonna pull that out, pull that bolt off real quick. That's fine. We will just let it come out of the mount. It's a stud, I guess, that threads into the mount. I think we're just going to leave it about like that. That should be plenty, and that way it'll kind of let us guide on here. You know, we won't be having to try to line the hole back up. If that makes sense. We can always go more, but this allows it to go up about 1 inch. I think that'll give us enough clearance. All right, as you can see, we got it jacked up and just got under here on the housing of the transmission. This is kind of where the differential is, and we'll probably let it back down before we drain the fluid just to get the jack out of the way. So I'm gonna think I'll set up time lapse. We'll get these two out just because they'll be easier with the transmission up, and then we'll get probably these two right there, and then we'll let the transmission back down and drain the fluid, all that kind of stuff, then take the rest of the bolts out. I think that's probably the best option here. So I'll set up some time lapse. Y'all can watch me get these out, and then I'll bring y'all back when we're ready to get the drain plug out. All right, so lowered it back down, went ahead and took 2 here and 2 here out, just because that one was, I don't know, maybe slightly easier to get to. And I think this is a 6mm if I remember correctly, Allen. Yep. So we've got our pan down here, and we're just gonna crack this loose. Now there's still the check tube or whatever you want to call it in here, so we may get some fluid out, but we're not going to get all of it out. And set this out of the way. So we'll let that drain for a minute. That fluid looks pretty dark. It smells pretty gross too. This pan is kind of cleanish. Probably clean enough that we should be able to tell the condition of the fluid. Now, like I said, the way you check the level on this, there's kind of like a straw thing that sticks up in the pan, and you fill to that, use that fill plug on the side and fill it up till it runs out. I'll have to look up the exact procedures, because there's some exact procedures to this, but what we're gonna do is, once this stops running out, we will pull that tube out. I think it's another 6 millimeter up in there. But we will wait for this to drain so we don't make a mess. Alright, so up in there, yep, there's our 6 millimeter again. We're gonna just shove it up in there and unthread the tube. And there it is, just a little plastic tube, and that is what sets the level of the fluid in the transmission. So don't lose this, and don't forget to put it back in there. So once this finishes draining, we'll be ready to undo the pan bolts. Now, if you weren't changing the filter and you were just doing a dump and fill, you know, you could just throw this, once this drains, you could throw this back in there and put the plug back in, fill it up, and be on your way. And you wouldn't have had to go through the pulling the pan bolts either. But we're gonna actually pull the pan, take a look, make sure there's no metal in the bottom of the pan, just kind of give this thing a once over, and go ahead and pop a new filter in it. Alright, let me go get something to put this in so I don't lose it, and I'll set some time lapse up and we will undo the pan bolts. All right, we got one bolt just loosely in it. One of the back ones kind of fought me. I went back and forth with it. Just if you get one that doesn't feel easy coming out, don't just keep going, work it back and forth. And I sprayed some WD-40 in there to try to get it between the threads once I had it backed out, and just kept working it back and forth. Spray more WD-40, and it came out. It looks like the threads are fine. So I probably should have left an easier one to get to in it. All right. Good placement of our pan. Slide it forward just a little bit. I'm going to pull this pan out. we'll have to clean it up, and I'm gonna let that drip for a while I clean the pan, and then we'll come back under here and pull the filter and replace the filter. I need to make sure our new filter looks the same. Hopefully so, because we've got the pan off now. And we will take a look at what's in the pan and the fluid that's in it. I guess while we're under here, we'll take a look. Well, we'll do two things. We'll pull this gasket off, and I did compare our filter. Looks the same, but I think we're going to go ahead and drop the old filter off, so if there's any fluid being held above the filter, like if the filter is plugged up, that can be draining. But we've got a bolt right here, and then there should be one. I have to look from the side. It's right here, the other one. So we'll do that real time real quick. Of course, keep track of these bolts because they are different from your pan bolts. They are longer and shinier. Easy way to tell them apart. And just double check our new filter. Looks like, yeah, just the two bolts. You know, you could get a Toyota one. I just ordered an ATP. I've had good luck with ATP transmission parts. Their filter kits have been good. I've used them on a lot of vehicles. So that's what I was thinking would happen. Is we would dump a bunch of fluid, and so our filter may be a little may have a little restriction to it. This fluid is pretty gross. One thing we will do, I should have an empty like oil jug. We will pour, this pan was empty starting, so we will pour this fluid into an oil jug and use the side, you know, the measurement on the side of the oil jug to kind of get a rough estimate of where, kind of a starting point on how much fluid we need to put in it, you know. So if we pour up 3 quarts of fluid, whatever, we know we can throw 3 quarts in and then start checking it. It's kind of my thought. Yeah. I'm just gonna, won't hurt those bolts in there if a little fluid gets in on them. Okay, let's go clean the transmission pan up, and then we will need to clean up this gasket surface, put the new filter on, and okay, so these two things here are magnets, and they collect clutch material, or well, I guess pretty much clutch material, I guess. It's typical to have some metal on them. This car has 245,000 miles on it, and I should have serviced the transmission long ago. I kind of read mixed things on it, if I should or not. You know, a lot of people say leave them alone. Some people say service them, and I kind of went with the leave it alone route, but I guess I should have serviced it. So just clean that up. Overall, it's not too bad. That's about what I would expect for as many miles. Actually, it's probably a little better looking than I would have expected, maybe. I want to try to make myself feel better. And it's just brake cleaner, and try to leave those. And there's a little indentions in the pan, kind of where they are supposed to sit. I'm not worried about that material there. I think that is probably an acceptable amount. Overall, this looks pretty clean, and what I would expect for as many miles as it has and not being serviced. I guess don't be like me, service your transmission. Typically I'm pretty good about maintenance. Like I said, there's conflicting information. I should have went the maintenance route. A lot of people just say, don't touch them, let it go. And I probably shouldn't have went that route. Don't ever flush them. That's my thing. I think what we're doing here is completely acceptable. Maybe not with as many miles as this thing has on it. I probably, if I was just buying this vehicle and it had never been serviced and I knew that, and it was having no issues, I probably wouldn't mess with it. I think it would be a greater risk to do it than not do it. This thing, I think it had about 100,000 on it when we bought it, and so I just kind of decided to leave it alone. But I think at 100,000 we would have been fine. I think it was maybe under 100,000, just under. But I think we would have been fine servicing it then, and then regularly servicing it after that. But did not. All right, I'm going to work on this a little more, get it really clean, and then I will bring y'all underneath and we will clean up the mating surface for the pan and pop the filter in. Probably just set up time lapse for that. One thing to be careful of is your filter has an O-ring, and so just make sure your O-ring comes off with your old filter, and then take a little bit of your fluid and just wet your new O-ring that's on your filter. Make sure there is one on there, and once that's done, you can just push the new filter on. Well, there we go. Make sure it should slip on easily. You may have to do that little twisting motion like I did and get it started on there. And our old filter, our old O-ring is on the old filter. We'll set that in the pan for now. And we got our two shiny bolts, easy to find, in our bucket. And we'll start those. Like I said, you probably would be best to go with OEM Toyota. Like I said, I've had good luck with ATP. I'll put a link in the description to the filter I use. Just make sure there's a couple, I think there's 2 different transmission these could have. So just make sure, I don't know if the filters are the same. Just make sure it is correct for your vehicle. The other thing I did do is I made sure our pan gasket does line up with the pan. It is the correct gasket. So I will, like I said, I'll put a link in the description to that. I'll also put one to a set of wiggle joint sockets. There's probably a torque spec on these. Typically when I want to do low torque stuff, I kind of choke up on the ratchet like this, so I can't get a lot of torque, and that helps keep me from over tightening things. Just a little tip there. All right, we're gonna take some brake cleaner on a clean rag, and we're just gonna go along here and just wipe off this mating surface. All right, that looks good. I don't see any issues there. Let's get our pan that's now clean and our pan gasket. We'll lay our pan gasket on the pan. Typically, these ATP gaskets, they will have, like, right here is a smaller hole. So that one will hold the bolt. So if you start your bolt in that hole, come on. Probably should have done this. Well, I guess this one doesn't have it. So let's just snake this thing. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna set up some time lapse. I'm gonna need to push this pan out of the way. Yeah, I think they call them third hand gaskets, but this one does not have it. That hole looked smaller, but it's not really. So I'm gonna need to take some time and make sure I get this gasket started on straight. I really don't want to glue it to the pan. You could if you wanted to with some of the kind of like Permatex Aviation brush on glue, and that would help hold the gasket on, but I don't really want to do that. So let me take some time and get this going. You can watch me. Okay, got them all tightened down. I torqued them down to 62 inch-pounds. I just ran through and kind of snugged them up by hand and then went back and torqued them all. This one, for whatever reason, fought me a lot harder than it did coming out. I'm not sure why, but ended up, I think maybe when I jacked it up, it shifted the transmission this way. Once I started trying to pry it over, eventually it kind of stayed, and I had a little more clearance to get in there. But yeah, that one kind of fought me. So we put our little tube back in, just hand tighten that thing. It's plastic, you don't want to strip it out. And so now I'm gonna go measure up how much fluid we got out of it. But before I pulled y'all out from underneath, and yeah, I wanted to fill y'all in on what we did here. As far as the pan gasket goes, just be careful, make sure it stays, doesn't fall down in the pan or something like that. Get all your bolts started before you even start trying to snug any of them up. Just barely get them started. Go all the way around and make sure your pan gasket is in place. You know, you can, the parts you can't see, you can kind of feel up in here and feel the edge of the gasket. Just make sure, and you can kind of see when you go to start your bolt, you can kind of see the hole in the pan gasket. You know, just make sure you get it all in properly. So, all right, let me go pour the fluid up. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put the plug in it, and I poured up into a old oil jug about 3 1/4 quarts. So we know it needs, I've never added to it, so we know it's going to need at least 3 1/4 quarts. Probably a little extra from spillage. I bet we're going to end up at about a 3 1/2 quart range, but we're going to put 3 1/4 in it. I guess before we do that, we should probably tighten down our engine mount, or motor mount, transmission mount. So I'll do that real quick, and that's kind of the setup I've got, and I'll show you the fluid in just a minute. There's our drain plug, or our fill plug. And then we're gonna have to get some heat in this thing. Not much, because I think you're supposed to have it at 95 degrees, and it's 90 plus ambient temperature here. So I don't think we're gonna need much heat in it, but I need to look back at the spec. Oh shoot, I forgot my scan tool. I need to see if I've got one here. I don't know if I do or not. I think my scan tool's at the house, so I may need to look up, see if there's some other way to get it to display on the dash. Maybe I can Google that and see. Yeah, I forgot my scan tool, so I will tighten that up, put the drain plug back in it, and we're gonna put just a hair over, somewhere between we'll put 3 quarts in it, and then we're gonna need to level this thing out a little. So I'll have to jack up the back and start it up and get it up to temp, and then we'll pull the check plug off the bottom and see what the fluid level's at. All right, I put right at 3 quarts in, maybe just a hair under 3 quarts. So we know we're probably gonna have to add some. This is the fluid I use. This is, it crosses to the Toyota type WS right there, which is what this calls for. So they make good fluid, so this is good stuff. This isn't just cheap stuff. So I've got my old scan tool. We'll see if it'll read transmission temperature. Let's start this thing up. I've got it leveled out. And linking error. Ha ha ha. Alright, so typically you'd use a scan tool, but my radio interfaces this Pioneer, interfaces with the car. It actually plugs into the OBD2 port, and I can have custom gauges on here, so we can do transmission fluid temp. And now trans 98 degrees. It needs to be between 95 and 110, I think. If not, I'll put a thing right there, but we're at 98 degrees. Woohoo! Perfect. Let me I'm gonna cycle through, drive and reverse, and we're gonna go pull the plug and see if fluid runs out. If not, we need to add fluid until it just starts to run out. So we're gonna take the plug out and see, we should get some fluid running out. And we do not, so we need to add fluid. So it is low. So I just hand tighten our plug, our fill port, and y'all yell at me when fluid starts running out. Okay? I'm counting on y'all. No! Our tube wasn't all the way in. Our fill tube fell out. My tape did not hold. Wasting fluid. No, not good. All right, let's try that again. Well, at least it went in the pan, I guess, when it drained out. All right. Yeah, that still looks pretty nasty. I'm gonna put a little more in it to kind of flush some of that gross stuff out. Just another little swig. All right, we know we got too much in it right now because it's draining out. Like I said, I put one little swig back in the funnel just to kind of get a little bit more of that nasty fluid out. We don't want to do a full flush or something though. And there we go. Proper fluid level. All right, so what happened, that fluid that got spilt that y'all saw, my tube slid out. Even though I had it taped, it slid out, and you can see where it ran down the side of the transmission here. I'll get some brake cleaner, clean that up. And we need to tighten that down. Before we get snugged up. Come on. Yeah, I'll need to get another can of brake cleaner. I'm going to tighten that down. We already did our motor mount before we cranked it up, but I'll tighten that down and then clean up our mess here, and then we can let it down. So I took it for a test drive, and the shudder is gone. Transmission shifts good. When the torque converter locks up, there's no shudder. So we fixed our issue and wanted to give it some time just to make sure everything continued working well before I put this video out. So it's actually been 1,000 miles and still shifting great, no shudder. So I think we are good to go. And as far as future services, I think at 60,000, I'll drop the filter and do the fluid again. So that'll put it just a hair over 300,000. So I think that'll be good. And then every 60,000, we'll do the same. So we'll get this thing on a routine maintenance, I guess, for transmission. I should have done that prior. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.